In this series of videos, I'm going to work through some of the exams that lots of you guys are taking all around the world. Hopefully that will be useful just to check that you're on the right track and that you understood all the things that you need to know to get these exams absolutely in the bag and out of the way. I suppose in a way you could think of it a bit like PewDiePie playing computer games. You're going to watch me take a music exam, which ultimately won't be as fun at all as watching him, but hopefully it'll be useful if you have one of these exams coming up. So here we go. We're going to start off with Associated Board, which is the set of exams that I took. It's what most people in the UK, when they're learning music, will take one of these exams at some point in their lives, and it's kind of a good basic grounding in music. There are 8 stages that go from grades 1 to 8, and by the time you get to grade 8 in either playing the piano or singing or playing the violin or in music theory, the idea of studying how music works, then you've probably got a good basic grounding, and then you're ready to go out and continue to explore music in a more advanced way. So let's have a go and have a look at grade 1. This is where you would start off if you were learning about music, and I should say at this point that I'm really grateful to this website, musictheoryhelp.co.uk, for providing these excellent practice papers that have examples of the kinds of questions that you're going to find on these ABRSM exams, and actually later we can have a look at some different exams as well and see how they're different and what other stuff they're asking you on those exams as well. So I would go and check that site out. The papers are all there for you to download. It might be a really good idea if you're preparing for one of these exams to download this paper. This was the grade 1 ABRSM paper. Have a go at it, see how you get on, and you can then watch me have a go and see if we agree, or if you've got something different to me, by all means put something in the comments and we can have a chat about how you're right and I'm wrong, which is definitely a possibility. So one of the most important things I should say at this point about taking exams, and I don't think exams are the be-all and end-all of everything, but they are quite useful. They help to show what we've learned, and they're kind of an important way of showing other people that we're good at stuff. And I wouldn't say they're the most important thing in the world, but obviously it's helpful if you can do as well as you can on them. And the main thing that I find when people take these exams is they make normally the most mistakes, not because they haven't understood the stuff or because they're not good musicians, but instead because they were in too much of a rush and they didn't read the words properly. They didn't read the questions properly, and so they answered the question that they would have liked to be asked, or they thought they were being asked, but actually they answered something that was completely different, and so that is technically wrong. And so the main thing we'll do, and even if this is quite boring, we will read these papers really carefully and really look at what it's asking us to do, because that's the most important thing that you can do, is read the thing properly. So what do we have here? Grade 1 practice theory paper. This paper contains 4 questions, all of which should be answered. So that's quite important, because sometimes you get exams where it says you've got 12 questions here, you need to pick 3. But in this case, we're going to answer everything. It says time allowed is an hour, so that's quite important. If there's 4 questions, we might want to spend about 15 minutes on each one, maybe a little bit less, so we've got time to check it all at the end. And I think checking at the end of an exam is quite important, so probably less than 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes on each one, give you some time to check. And then it says write your answers clearly and neatly, otherwise you may lose marks. Well, you need to remember that, of course, I am writing on the screen, which might be a complete mess, and so you'll have to just excuse me for that. Anyway, so question 1, let's have a go at this. So it says, question 1, this extract begins on the first beat of the bar. Add an appropriate time signature and then add the missing bar lines. The first one has been added in for you. Okay, so what is this question asking us to do? It's asking us to do 2 things, actually. It's asking us to decide what time signature we think the music is in, and then it's asking us to add bar lines which have been left out below. And that's true. If you look, there's lots of notes here, but there's no bar line. So probably the easiest thing to do would be to work out the time signature, and then once we've done that, we can use that information to fill in where the bar line should be. And what's nice here is we've actually got one bar that's complete. So if we can work out how many beats are in this bar that's complete, we can probably work out how many beats should be in all the bars that come afterwards. Now to do that, we just need to have a think about counting up the note values that we've got here. So what's going on in these first couple of notes? Well, this is a dotted quaver or 8th note, and it's connected to a 16th note. Now, if we add those 2 together, don't forget the dot adds on half again. So this is 1.5 quavers or 8th notes connected to a 16th note or a semiquaver, and together those 2 notes add up to 1 beat. So we'll call that 1, put a 1 down here. Then it gets a bit easier because, that was quite difficult to start with. We've got this quarter note here. This is a crotchet, and the crotchet lasts for 1 beat in the music, so that's easy enough. And then we have some other notes here. These are eighth notes again, but they're not dotted this time, so they're just normal eighth notes. And we've got 4 of them, so we take these two, for example, these 2 here. These 2 will add up to 1 beat, because 2 eighth notes or 2 quavers make a crotchet or a quarter note. And we have the same thing here. We've got 2 more of these eighth notes, so they're going to add up to 1 quarter note, and that gives us a beat. So we've got 4 beats here. So it's going to be either 4/4 or 2/2. So you've got to really ask yourself the question, does this look like it's in 4 in a bar, or does this look like it's in 2 in a bar? And if we look at the way that the rhythm goes in this first bar, it goes something like this. So da, 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 da. So I don't think that's really in 2. That feels much more in 4 to me, mainly because we've got something happening on pretty much every beat of the 4 beats, and so it doesn't look like 2/2. 2/2 music is normally slower, so the fact that it's got allegro, which we'll look at in a minute, also suggests that it's probably not 2/2. I'd say more likely it's going to be 4/4. So let's put this in here. Another way we could write 4/4 is like this, like common time. So the C at the beginning of the music could be 4/4, but I think I'm going to go with 4/4. And that puts in our time signatures. That's really good. So we now have a good idea of the time signature. And so what we need to do to complete the question is this bit, the add the missing bar lines bit. So that should be relatively straightforward as long as we can count up the values, because every time we've got 4 beats, we need to put in a bar line, seeing as we decided this is in 4/4. So let's see if we can do that. Well, that's easy enough, because we've got 4 16th notes here, and 4 16th notes add up to a quarter note. So that's 1, dead easy. And then we have a quarter note, so that's easy, because that adds up to 1 beat. And then we have this thing here, which is slightly more complex perhaps, because we don't have a whole beat here. We just have some notes that are connected together which don't add up to a whole beat, but they add up to half a beat, because that's 2 16th notes or semiquavers. And we have the same thing here as well. So that's half a beat. So we've got 3 beats so far, and we've got this quarter note here, this one, which gives us 1. So if we add all these together, these 4 semiquavers make 1 beat, this crotchet makes a beat, these 2 semiquavers make half a beat, this crotchet makes another whole beat, and then we have these 2 semiquavers again, which make us half a beat, which means that altogether those notes add up to 4, and so we can close this bar off now and draw a line in there, and that gives us our second bar of the music. And we see to do the same thing, so it's the same pattern. If we look in the start of this new bar, we've got this same pattern of 2 semiquavers, crotchet, 2 semiquavers, and so we can write the same values underneath: half, 1, half. And we've got to deal with this thing. It's pretty straightforward. It's a crotchet with a dot, so a dotted crotchet, which means it's a crotchet's normal length plus half again. So a crotchet is normally 1 beat, but because it's got the dot, it's going to be 1.5 beats. And that's joined by this guy, which is a quaver, which is, of course, half a beat. And if we look carefully at how we've organised all of that, this should be 2 beats. So half plus 1 plus a half is 2, plus 1.5 is 3.5, plus another half is 4. So we can put in our bar line there, and that's the third bar completed. I wouldn't, by the way, write all this on. I would just do this in your head and then draw the lines in. But you can if you want and rub it out, or get rid of it. It doesn't really matter. But all we're looking to do is make the bars, and then we've got this thing here. Now it'd be worth checking that this is the end, because this could be just 1 bar here. So we've got basically nothing but 8th notes. We've got either 8th notes like this one, or we've got 8th note rests or quaver rests. And if we count them up, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those. And so altogether, that's going to add up to 1 bar, because that's 4 beats. If you think of 8 quavers add up to 4 crotchets or 4 quarter notes. And so this is a bar in itself, so we don't need to draw anything else. And I think now we are done with this. And so we've completed this question in that we've added a time signature, we decided it was 4/4, and we've drawn bar lines in to complete the organisation of the notes into correct bar lengths. Okay, next question. Now, some of these are a little bit more difficult for me to kind of show you how to do it. It's more just, do you know this stuff? And I've always thought with these, if you know them, then that's great. If you happen to recognise the Italian term, or sometimes you even get English terms or German terms that are in the music, and they ask you, what does it mean? If you know it, great. If you don't know it, don't worry about it too much and just move on, because you might just be unlucky and not know what something happens to mean. But one thing you should probably learn before going into any kind of music theory exam is things like dynamic markings. So what do those mean? Tempo markings, what do those mean? And some of the more common sort of playing styles or directions that you might get, particularly for certain instruments. So you might want to look at the sorts of playing instructions that you get on violins and on wind instruments and on the piano, and that will hopefully help you to get through this kind of question. But this should be relatively straightforward. So it's saying give the meaning of F, which is this thing here in the music. Well, this is a dynamic marking, so this is telling us about how loud or soft we should play, and F means, well, short for forte, which is Italian for actually not loud. It actually means strong, but we come to understand it as meaning play loudly. So there we go. That's easy enough. Allegro is a tempo marking, so that's telling us how fast or slow the music should be. And allegro, you just kind of need to learn this, just means, sort of quite fast and lively is a good definition for allegro. So it's not totally as fast as you can do, like presto. Presto's really very fast. This is quite fast. And it also tends to have this sort of joyful, lively character to it. So that's easy enough. This one, maybe slightly more difficult. This is an ornament, so this is telling you, that you should maybe add some extra twiddles into the melody. Ornaments are always about taking a melody and maybe embellishing it or making it more complicated or adding some stuff to it. And so this thing here is a trill, so we can write that in, and it's just kind of a shake between this note and the note above or the note below. So you might put something like trill, a shake between two notes. Probably think of a better definition for that, but that'll do. It's always the note above or the note below. In this case, it would be the note above. Depends on the sort of music and the style of music we're playing, but I wouldn't worry too much. We're just doing grade 1, so I don't think anyone would be upset with you if you didn't know whether it was the upper note or the lower note. That's all fine. So we've got this last one, legato. So this is asking us to define what this means. This is saying that we should play the music in a particular way. And legato means we should play smoothly. And that's kind of, we've looked at this, I think, in another part of the site where we talk about legato and staccato and articulation in general. So legato is saying play smoothly. Cool, so that is that question done and dusted. So the next bit is saying circle the key in which this extract is written. So normally there's a couple of clues that we'll be looking for to tell us what key a piece is in. You should be looking for a key signature at the beginning of the music, and we don't seem to have one of those, which is interesting. Normally we might expect to see some sharps and flats here at the start of the music. We don't have that. And so that might make us think, well, it might be one of those keys that doesn't have a key signature, so it has no sharps or flats in the key signature, which is, of course, either C major or A minor. And so that's probably the area we should be looking to pick from. And bearing in mind that we don't have a choice of A minor, that's kind of interesting. But we could confirm our suspicion that this might be C major by the fact that the music starts on a C, and it seems like C is quite an important note. So you'll see it starts on a C here. And the music kind of keeps coming back to C. If we look, there's lots of Cs in this music, and that's an indication, a bit of a clue to me that we're probably looking at this piece being in C major. Now, after that, it's asking us answer true or untrue, not true or false, it would seem. True or untrue to the following statements. And this is an absolute classic example of where not maybe reading the question so carefully and not thinking too carefully about it could be a really bad thing to do, because yes, it would take a really mean teacher or examiner to mark you wrong because you wrote false instead of untrue. But there are some teachers who are mean and would exactly do that and would take pleasure in, marking you wrong even though you were right because you wrote false instead of untrue. So I would definitely not give them the satisfaction of being able to mark you wrong and just write in exactly what it's asked you to do. So we're going to write in true or untrue against these statements. So the first statement is the highest and lowest notes in the extract are A's. So that'll mean, to work that out, we just need to work out what is the lowest note and what is the highest note and work out if they are A's. So let's start with the lowest note. That's looking quite low. Do we see a note lower than that? Not really. I would expect there to be a lower note than that. No, No, that's it. So that is our lowest note. And what is the highest note? Well, the highest note, as far as I can see, is this one, because it's up on a ledger line. It's sort of so high it's gone off the top of the staff, and it needs its own line to sit on there. And it turns out that indeed, these notes are both A, because there's that A, which is facing the space. The second space is always an A. And there's the A up here, which is on this first ledger line. And that, again, is an A. So I'd say we would say true to this. The highest and lowest notes in this extract are A's. That is true. Okay. The extract's shortest note value is a quaver. Well, I'm pretty sure this is not true because we've already talked about there being 16th notes or semiquavers in this extract. So there's one there, and there's some here, and there's some here. So that's definitely not true. It's not false. Well, it is false, but we're going to write untrue because you know, that's what it said, even though false would be okay, probably in any other situation. The next one's saying the extract begins on the tonic first degree note. So we've decided that this piece is in C major. So the tonic of C major is, of course, C. And we need to ask ourselves, well, does this piece start on a C? And it does indeed. So that would mean that we're going to say yes, this is true. That's the end of the first question. I'll see you in the next one.